what I intend to do is that three basic things. A little bit, Dr. Ish's already mentioned about how we perform in terms of trade. And then I will go into, what the rest of the world is doing. First, about our trade performance, then what are the major problems? Maybe I'll take a shortcut there because Dr. Ish has already explained. And then because I spent several years in Geneva, and one of the things we used to do is trade policy review of various countries. And I've seen many, many countries over that 6 years that I was at the WTO, then at the UN. So I've seen many countries, their trade policies and how they've been evolving. And what is bad or wrong with Pakistan? Why isn't this evolving? So I'll discuss that. And then I would go to what is the way forward. So these are the three topics that I have. I don't know. Is there some my comments here somewhere? I just left my papers here, but it doesn't matter. I'll try to read from there. But if so, let me. Yeah, maybe it's there, because sometimes it's difficult to read from there. So, how are we performing in terms of trade? Dr. Ishat already explained, and that we were doing very well till the 90s. But I think my opinion is that we were doing very well till the late 60s, and then things started going down after that. Maybe up to 1970, perhaps if you take our exports and you take Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, all these countries combined, our exports were more than their combined exports. And now we are not even a fraction of any of these countries. Maybe our exports 20 billion, any of these countries 200, 300 billion. So, and let me give you one or two specific country examples. For example, comparing with, this is just the shares showing how where we have stayed and where the rest of the countries have gone. And I wanted to compare with Turkey. In 1980, Turkey was about the same level as Pakistan, at 3 billion exports, about the same textiles and clothing and agriculture products. And now we look at 2016, and this is Pakistan, but if you look at Turkey, everything has changed. Now, we were 3 billion, they were 3 billion, now they're more than 150, 160 billion, and we have moved just from 3 billion to about 20 billion. And their now main exports are auto parts and machinery and other things. Maybe textile is still there, but it's a very low percentage. But overall, they moved on. Now, how that happened? In 1980s, they started thinking of becoming a part of the European Union, and and they started reforming their trade policies along the lines of European Union. There were lots of people in Turkey, they were questioning, how can that be possible? Europe has been industrialized for hundreds of years, and we are just developing, and if we get rid of these tariffs and as these protection, auto industry, etc., we'll be ruined. But there were some forward-looking people like Turgut Özal and some other people who said, no, but that's our direction. So they started bringing down at least in the industrial sector, maybe agriculture was slightly different, to the same level as European Union. As you know, the European Union may be on textile clothing, their tariffs are a little bit higher, 12%, 10%, something like that. But otherwise, their tariffs are average 2%. So Turkey tried to bring their tariffs to the same level as Europe, and by 1995 they had succeeded, and they became a part of the customs union. Maybe they didn't become a full member of the union, but they became a part of the customs union. And now look at that, after getting rid of all those protections, where they've gone. I mean, especially in autos, like our auto industry, they never let, all the time, every 5 years, the policy comes, and there's more protection, further more protection. And every time they promise the moon, that if you give us 5 more years, we'll get there, this thing. But nothing changes. And in case of Turkey, now they produce more cars than say Italy, which is the powerhouse of car producing, and one of their big exports is auto parts. So let me give you one other example, maybe. Okay. Say Vietnam. Okay, that's more relevant nowadays. In 1995, our exports are about 5 billion, and Vietnam reached us there 5 billion. And they started opening up. They were joining the WTO, so they had to reform their systems. And once they joined the WTO, they had to bring more reforms. And now they're, I don't know, 170, 180 billion. And from 5 billion, we have reached 20 billion, and they've reached 100, 120, 130. And it's just nothing changed, same people, same resources, everything. It's just domestic reforms everywhere, and becoming more competitive through opening up more competition. Now, okay, so just this particular portion, it's already been reiterated by Dr. Ishad, but why? I mean, there are other reasons. You know, I'm only getting into trade policy reasons. Maybe our education, maybe our law and order, maybe other things. But I'm more focusing on trade policy. So I think the first thing is that our trade protectionism is one of the, and people here, even the economists, university teacher, practitioner, you go to any government office, they think we are the most open economy in the world because they go to markets and they see. They don't realize, Customs did an exercise about 4 or 5 years ago, and they looked at about, I don't know, 11 items or something, and their 18 items, I think, and their conclusion was that the smuggling volume in those was about 11 billion. You're already looking at your watch, so it's okay. Okay,
we can start wrapping up. Thank you.
Okay. So, it's sorry. Where was I?
People think that we are too liberal.
Too liberal, and because all those smuggling goods come in, but if you look at any international ranking or any international study, they will show you that you are one of the most protectionist countries in the world in terms of travel. You see, if Vietnam, I give you an example, it's their taxes from international trade is about 2.5%. If you look at FBR booklet, every year they print, and you look at what custom duty they collected, maybe 13%, another 18% sales tax, and withholding tax, 40 to 45% of our taxes collected from imports. Now look at, say, Turkey was another example I gave. If you look at their custom duty of the total, is 2%. Ours, at just the custom duty is at least 13%. So that is the basic problem. The other is that our trade facilitation, you know, this adds a lot of cost. There are some studies showing that Pakistan's exporters and importers, if they could just facilitate, jaise aap abhi keh rahe the, okay, just that happens, our cost could come down by about 15%. Now, you go to Europe or any country and you ask, okay, I want to import this water, and what is the duty rate? And they will give you, and that's binding. It's not that suddenly a regulatory duty will come. It's binding, so it's 6 months. And it's also binding that they let you know, okay, what is the duty rate on this, and how do you classify and all that. And also there are, you know, these hotlines you can just call and find out, and none of that exists. And so if you look at our, I mean, I know one of the things, if you're interested to bring down our rankings in the World Bank and World Economic Forum, and if you look, 2 areas where we are doing the worst. One is trading across the borders. The costs are the highest. If you look at the cost of a container going from here to any of those countries, it's 800, 900. And if you look at further breakdown, it's okay, customs may cost 150. I'm not saying tariffs. I'm just saying the cost of processing. Then there are so many other agencies. You just go to Vaga and you look, one agency checking, another. So you have to trust somebody. And if you just get rid of all these agencies, have one, maybe hand it over all to rangers or anybody. But at least you'll bring down. So its cost is really very high in terms of Pakistan. Okay. So NLC and all those. So what is the modern trend in internationally? You see, previously, we still think in terms that, okay, we'll bring some raw material and we make something and we export it. It's gone. No more. It's now global value chains. 70% of trade is in global value chains. So if you want to make a shirt, you have to import some buttons from somewhere, collars from somewhere, cotton maybe, and that's how you make it. Pakistan is still stuck that we must make. Look at our auto policy I mentioned earlier. We still have an import deletion policy. It must, you know, if you want to, we have a list we made about 15, 20 years ago that these parts, this bumper, can be made locally. So the duties, now previously through regulations, now through duty rates. We don't realize that we ruin the quality of the whole car just because having 2 or 3, very low quality parts. Now, this was the same with many other countries, India, China, everybody. But then these WTO rules called trade-related investment measures, that came in we were supposed to implement in 2000. And maybe many other countries tried to dodge. India tried, but they were taken to dispute settlement, and they had to get rid of them. And Pakistan is still maintaining. Now, India started allowing parts from anywhere, from Far East. Look at the car industry. They had, in 2000 or 2001, if you have traveled to India, you've seen that ambassador car, just one old, and Pakistan was far more modern with new cars. And now, go India, and you find completely different. It's not only India, it happened with many, many other countries. And I don't have time to go through that, but okay. I just wanted to show that chart to show that Pakistan is here, and compared to South Asia and compared to other, how protected it is compared to any other countries. And this is just to show how India has changed. It was far more protectionist than us. And then, as Dr. Ishii was saying, from 91, it started reforming. And now it's, you see, we were about 2002, we were, I think, still at about, 25. We had brought down the tariff at 25. India was still at 30. But they continued their reform process. Now the top rate is about 8%. And we went in reverse. First, no more, after 2002, there has been no reform whatsoever for the last 16 years. But whatever happened in the other way. I mean, you have now hundreds of items. We just call anything luxury and put some duty on it. One of the things I think all the bureaucracy and everybody has with mobile phones, they think it's luxury. It's no more a luxury. It's needed. Rich people like sitting here can afford to, but it's the poor people, they need it more. But every time they put some more. What has happened? That it doesn't really stop it. Maybe they were about 20% previously smuggled. Now it's 60, 70% are smuggled because of this high taxes. And this is just one example. This has happened all over. And moreover, one other thing. If even a thing like, say, chandelier or air conditioner, say you put a luxury tax, what you do is that you make your own manufacturer so much more inefficient. Because previously they had a protection of 30%, now 60%, they don't care. Recently we raised duties on cars, and now all the cars are they've raised their price, and they become, and moreover they have no interest in exporting that thing because they have a local market, they have a protected market, so there's no interest in exporting. On the other hand, you see, we had this tractors, say, in Pakistan, because we kept very low duty, 0 to 10%, and we produced one of the cheapest tractors because they have to compete. So, okay, let me just quickly try to go one or two other points. And these are, I'm just trying to show that how many regulatory duties on top of protections we have now. More than 1,000 items are. And anything can be, because it's the FBR, and their interest is, I worked in FBR, and Mr. Salman Khan worked in FBR. Their basic thinking is how to raise more revenue. They don't care about exports or anything else. And so when they ask them, just look at luxury duties, so everything becomes luxury for them. They just they start putting these regulatory duties. Now, I've already given give you a few examples of some case studies. Now, I've already explained auto industry and just a minute about information technology. Now, when this information technology started becoming common, so WTO people said, okay, this might take a lot of time to have an agreement, but let's have an agreement of the willing, plurilateral. So if countries want to join. This agreement came into being in 1998. And India immediately joined, many other countries. Now we have 82 countries joined. Pakistan also did this during that reform period, 2001-2, we joined. But then we didn't join there, but we brought down the tariffs. And then subsequently all tariffs were imposed. Now it's been 20 years, we're still thinking. Last year, the Prime Minister set up a committee headed by the Commerce Secretary. There were 3 other secretaries. I was also a part of it. And the committee said we must join this information technology agreement to be a part of the information technology club, because it just means that you, on circuits, integrate circuit, computer, etc., and software, you bring down tariffs. And the committee, FBR said, no, we'll lose 2-3 billion rupees or something, and Prime Minister overruled that, and they said it should go to the cabinet. And when it goes to the cabinet, again FBR says, oh, but why are we rushing through this? It's already 20 years we've been thinking. And now they asked for another study, and somebody at grade 19 or something has been able to block that, what was agreed at the secretary level, at the Prime Minister level, at every ministry. But Malaysia, if you look at their, what do they export? They import something like integrated circuit and all these things, $30 billion. But they export those things, $45 billion, so $15 billion. But here, last time, one of the reasons FBR said, well, if we allow the duty-free, there'll be flood of computers and integrated circuits in Pakistan. Who would bring? But this is something strange, but that's how we are left so far behind now. There are 82 countries, even Afghanistan is a member, Pakistan just. And just one other example, this printing industry that we, you see, if they bring paper, it's 20% tax, ink is tax, everything, and if you bring the books, it's free. So it's much cheaper to print your books. Hong Kong, a friend of mine from London, he left his business, came here, set up printing industry, and afterwards he realized much cheaper to get it printed in Singapore or anywhere rather than Pakistan. And so for every industry, I didn't want to go into textile clothing. I wanted to bring up other things, and you have these problems. Okay. And I've already spoken about this. Import substitution is the psyche of this country, and countries which got rid of it and went on to export-led growth, where have they gone and where we are? Now, this was just a map of countries which are part of information technology. Only some African countries and Latin America, there was another reason because of their customs union, and they have zero duties anyway on those. But and FBR says, well, what's wrong being with Africa? So if they don't want to be, why should we join this? So this is their logic. Printing industry already explained. Yes, and because of these reasons, because we don't want information technology, we don't want auto, we don't want any of those things, so we are stuck somewhere at the bottom. In anything that we export, there's no knowledge based, there's no pharmaceuticals, nothing. And anything, if you look at Pakistan's policies, if you want to convert cotton into yarn, everything is duty-free. The machinery is duty-free. If you export it, you get some rebate, etc. But if you want to make some software, how much yarn can you export? I mean, it's very energy inefficient. But if you want to export some software, no, you have to pay duties on computers and all those things. So this applies to most other industries. So only Pakistan's government's policy is only to promote one or two industry. Recently there was this big exercise of SROs reforms, etc. And they said we have got rid of so many reforms. And if you look at that SRO reform, two industries that they have completely didn't touch them. One was auto industry because they have a strong lobby, and the other was this textile lobby because APTMA is very strong. So they didn't touch them. The poor guys like information, this mobile phones and other such things. Their duty used to be 5%. They said, oh, we're getting rid of this SRO, so they make it 20%. Any other industry we didn't have a lobby, their duties were raised many, many times. I think, okay, 1 or 2 minutes. On this regional trade, I mean, look at Sri Lanka or Bangladesh and their trade with India. Dr. Ishit already discussed it. They are many times, we are a much bigger economy. We have hardly any trade, and look at them, their level of trade with India. So just to sum up, I think what we need to do is some serious reforms in the area, and maybe, sir, you'll have this opportunity, and you are at that forum, that all these studies are already done. For example, on tariffs, We did a 3-year thing. We used to work at, there was a trade project, USA Trade, and they spent 45. We prepared a 3-year tariff plan. Nobody even looked at it. Sulman Sahib did on trade facilitation. What is the way forward? Everything, made all the papers. Every time we go to FBR, they are lost somewhere. so he gives them a new copy, but still nothing. So these things, all the studies are there, everything is there, and there are people who want to, there are bright people in those organizations. Only some policy decision has to come. And I end here. I think I've overrun my time. Thank you.